For the first 4 months of playing chess, I've started with an absolute summary of zero progress in the game. I was trying to watch as many videos that I could on YouTube to absorb all the information like a sponge. I was trying to read a lot of articles and information that I could consume on websites that I would find later on. I made no progress at the game. That was for the first 4 months. Imagine 4 months without even seeing the slightest of progress that I should already start seeing in my games. Until a very, very clear point where I have decided to learn directly from a chess professional. So, professional is someone with an IM title, International Master title. And that was the point where I actually skyrocketed my own elo. I leveled up from 700 all the way up to 1300, and I still continue to level up from there on. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some examples for what have really helped me to improve as a chess beginner. So let's start with this game, and what we're going to do is practice on the way that we think before every move in chess, which is what I actually missed on. When I was looking for all these videos of how to improve at chess, what I was getting is information for areas that I would be ready for, whereas in a lot of examples, in a lot of games, we're actually going to face moves and ideas that we have not yet prepared for. And so for these types of situations, we need to build on another sort of like umbrella, which is the process that we are going to think on independently. And so what we're going to do in this video is we're going to train a lot of our independent thinking in chess games. So white have made the move queen to e5, and I want you to think right now what is the move that we should do now as black. So in this position, I think I ask a few questions. What are the weak squares of my opponent? That is one question that I ask. So first of all, in my thinking process, I ask, what are the downsides of the move queen to e2? What do I really think about this move, despite it actually being considered the excellent move? That is the first thing that I'm thinking about in here. The second one is, I think, what is this move threatening? And is there a tactic? This is the first step towards my thinking. Whilst I ask this, I realize that this move does not do much. It's a good move. It doesn't blunder anything or make any positional error, but it does allow me to continue with my own plans and ideas. What are weak squares that my opponent has or may have in the future? In here, I find that, for example, a very weak square is d4. How do we identify weak squares? They are very simply squares on the side of the opponent that they are going to have a very hard time to defend. Right now, it's going to be not easy for him to defend this square. On d4, we also have a lot of attackers onto this square as well. With this pawn, with the knight here and the pawn here, it's going to be quite difficult for him to defend this square. And so what I'm thinking is basically, how can I start attacking this d4 square? And my conclusion is that if I do d5, this is a move that he cannot ignore, because there's obviously the d4 threat immediately after this, so he's going to have to reply to it somehow. And so that's what I plan to do. I plan to do d5, right, to attack, to make a threat basically in here. He takes, okay, which is not a bad move. It's actually the only move here. He takes, okay? He takes, like we have just said, it's a good move. I take back. Again, continuing with my idea and plan to sort of like attack this d4 square from all angles. Now, he have made a move that I honestly did not think he would do. I was thinking when I was looking at this that he may move his bishop back or forward to just like trade pieces. But even then, I am very comfortable. I'm a little bit better here because if he does this, well, I can just threaten him later on. And plus I could add a queen here to start attacking on this d4 weakness. So I kind of like what I see. What I did not expect is my opponent to do the move d4. I expected him to just go ahead with the bishop here to try maybe to go to basically attack me as well. I did not expect the move d4 to happen. I thought it was not the best move in here, and I was sitting now for a moment asking again, what is the downside of the move d4 in here? I was sitting for like 10, 20 seconds, and I realized that the move d4 is a very weak move, and I'll tell you why. Take a look into into white's queen side. Yes, it responds to the idea that I had on to attack on d4, but now I can just change the plan and to attack something else. What is another square that I can attack here. If I'm and what I understand is that this opens a lot of weaknesses here on the queen side. Now I can just step forward with my own pawn here to c4. This bishop becomes suddenly extremely weak, and I'm enjoying a lot of space. And honestly, if I do the move c4, for example, in here, the bishop now, as we've just talked about, becomes very weak. He cannot do this move because then I can just take and win a pawn. Alright, so now I have this point where I enjoy a lot of queenside space due to the move that you have made d4. Was supposed to instead to the move like a move like bishop to g5, trying to be a little bit more aggressive, but that's fine, at least for me now. Well, because of the blocked bishop here and having less queenside space, but you can still play into fight. Right, so after a move like this, what is the move that you're thinking now you would do if you're white? And argue that now you're thinking, okay, what are the downsides of this move? What am I threatening? And what are your weak squares that you can attack? And you would probably come with a move like bishop to g5. Maybe trying to move the knight somewhere to attack, although I'm not really seeing. Maybe here? Although I'm not sure. It doesn't look like a good move, knight to h4, because after knight to here, although I am able to start attacking, like, for example, in here, with a move like this, and so I don't think knight to h4 is a good move. But still, you have a few good moves that you can pick from. You can move the rook here, you can move the bishop starting to attack on here, which is fine. In here, and I'm not joking, white have made the move b3. What do you think b3 does? Why is this a blunder? b3 is a horrible blunder for one very clear reason. What is the move that you're going to do now? Well, what you're going to do is very simply bishop takes on a3. And now black moved, now white moved from some sort of like an equal position, a bit preferable for black, to now completely lost. And the game continued, okay, and I'm gonna quickly run through these. Bishop takes on a3, b takes on c4, d takes on c4, pawn moved to d5. Now black is even better. Right, there's a clear threat on the knight, so he has to move knight to b4, threatening the bishop to basically go back, but also possibly also winning this pawn afterwards. But the idea of the threat is basically to win the bishop pair, and that's why there's a threat here to take here. So after the bishop moves back, bishop to b1, because white was thinking, okay, there's a threat to win the bishop pair, so I have to move back. But this bishop, you would actually be quite fine if it takes. Knight it takes on d5, and black is completely winning. So what do we learn from this example? If you're just starting to play chess, what we can learn is that we can create sort of like a thinking process. Now what that does is a thinking process is it allows us to play a lot more accurately. That is one thing. But the second thing is that it allows us to play better in the middle game and in the openings. Because what it does is it prepares us to think very independently for these examples that we are not completely prepared for beforehand. So that's why this is better. I'm showing you right now on the screen, on one paper, the thinking process. Now, obviously, this looks a lot, maybe if you're just starting, but what's going to happen is in an actual game, you're not just going to verbally ask any of these. In an actual game, a long time from now, what's going to happen is it comes naturally for you, and it would become a lot easier because it becomes natural to pick up on this type of stuff. This isn't what I've done when I just started, but this is something that beginners can learn from and to apply to their own games as well in order to really up their own accuracy. That is one thing. And the second one is it's going to help you to stop blunders like pawn to b3. You're going to realize soon that it's not only pieces that are important not to blunder, but also pawns. That is why we need to make sure that these blunders and also some inaccuracies, they happen a lot less in order to have a lot less of an effect over our games. And what we're going to see is a clear correlation between improving the accuracy of our games through thinking process, through stronger independent thinking. We're going to see a straight correlation between doing this and improving our ratings as beginners. It's what I do with my own students, okay? But for now, let's see another example. Let me now show you something else that the thought process could help you to realize whilst playing. So first of all, it could help you to stop blunders very clearly and very easily. But once you practice it and you do it for very long periods of time whilst improving calculation, because there is a very big part of calculation in this thought process, you could start realizing like moves that are very, very unexpected. That is one thing. So let's say for a moment that we have this move position as white that I've actually managed to get into because when I was playing and practicing the thought process against someone else. So he takes on d5, alright? And now my opponent has fortunately made a mistake. He have made the move e takes on d5. And I want you to really just pause and think, why is this move a mistake? There is one move here that works above all else. And it becomes difficult to see it in the beginning, but I want you to really stop, use the thinking process that I've outlined beforehand, and really see this. Why is this move a mistake? So if you've paused to look at this example, and again, I'm showing you this as a beginner because that is how strong the thinking process that I'm showing you actually is. I've got it from actual title players. So you've done e takes on d5. Now what we can do is a sacrifice. We can actually take here on d5 the pawn and to sacrifice the knight. Why is this? And I'm not going to make any move right now on the board. I want you to visualize beforehand why the knight takes is a correct move. If we're taking the knight, the pawn on d5, and it takes with the knight on d5, and I'm also not using notations because I want you to really see it in your mind. It's better than to see it physically. It's going to be a lot stronger for calculations. If we take on d5 with the knight, his knight could then take on us, the knight on f6. What happens after this is that we can reveal an attack on the knight with bishop to c3. Bishop to c3 reveals the attack on the knight on d5. And take a look, the knight will not be able to move. It's under a pin. That is one thing. So we will be able to win back the knight that we had. It's very accurate play in here, but it demands a lot of practice. And I'm not moving this because I want you to try to see it with your mind. Sometimes what really is helpful is to just look to the side and try to calculate it, like not straight to the board, but actually looking away from it. If we take with the knight on d4, he takes with his own knight back, and we move the bishop then to c4. What he could try to do is he could try to block the capture on the knight by moving the knight to d4. That would block the attack on his knight, so that is one thing. However, we can try to solve this very simply by just taking. Then we take with the queen and the attack is being revealed again, so that shouldn't be a problem. Knight takes on d5. He takes on d5 as well, which is the right move to do. Bishop to c3. He does knight to d4, trying to defend, as we've just talked about. Now we can just take here. If he moves the rook to c8, that is actually very fine for us, to c8 right here. Then what he's gonna do is, what we could do if he does this threat is, we could take here. The queen is gonna take. If he does the move rook to c8 like we've expected, we can basically do the move bishop takes on d5, the queen takes on d5, and now we can move the bishop back, and we'll just flip a pawn now. The thinking process would allow you to see this. It's going to be difficult, I'm not lying. It was very hard for me to see this line myself, and so it would be actually a lot easier to see these types of stuff following the thinking process. We may not be able to catch them all the time, but it would be easier to see them. And so if you want, here is the thinking process on paper, and here are the tasks that I would suggest you to do right after this video. So first of all, to copy this thinking process onto paper, you need to be able to somewhat recite it, to be able then to put it in your unconscious. That is one thing. The second thing is, now that we have applied it, now that we have a structure to our thinking, is to apply it versus bots. No more than, and what I would say is, the more bots that you're going to apply this, the better, because it's just going to be ingrained more in your mind. And so in here, let's try to aim for 20 bots actually, and that would give us a very, very solid way to improve our thinking process. That is one. After we do this, now we can add in a timer. So against the same bots, but for example, playing on 30 minutes timers, and this way on. And so now that we have practiced it versus 20 bots, now what we can do is we can add a a timer in. So now we've practiced playing high quality. Now we're practicing to play with a shorter amount of time to basically think faster. And so in here, what I will suggest is actually to play versus the same bots, same strength, however, to play them with a timer. And what you're going to naturally have is you're going to have the thought of how much time do I have left, how much time do I want to invest into the next move. And that is a very strong way, in my opinion, to improve on your thinking process. Alright, so that is it for this video. If you have any questions, leave them down below. I'll do my best to answer them as much as I can. And if you want, then there's the first link in the description. In there, I help people personally to level up at chess. Bye bye.